I think we can all agree that 2020 has not gone quite according to plan. My name is Jordan, and if you are a parent with young kids like me, then you know that parenting is tough. Parenting in a pandemic, though, well, now that's even tougher. However, pandemic or not, I think we all share the desire to have a calm home. The trick is that you can't have calm without first having discipline. Let's talk about a few tips that can help us out. Before we can focus on helping our kids to obey, we first have to start with us. Have you ever heard the phrase, "You can't give what you don't have"? If we are trying to help our kids learn how to obey, but we aren't modeling what those behaviors look like, then we're going to end up frustrated. I know that I have in my life. We need to start by actually taking a good look in the mirror and asking ourselves some difficult questions. Questions like, am I yelling at my kids to stop yelling? Or do I react out of my emotions? Or do I respond with level-headedness? When I'm the one who makes a mistake, and we all do I own up and apologize? The point is to examine ourselves to see what areas we need to work on before we can expect our kids to get it. If we're expecting our kids to behave the way we want them to, we must first start with us and make sure we are behaving the way that we want them to. A book that has some excellent tips for keeping a calm home is actually the Bible. In Ephesians chapter 6, it says, "Fathers," which is really just saying parents, "do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord." Discipline is about bringing your kids up, not about putting them down. We can get trapped in this mindset of thinking that discipline is merely a set of punishments for when our kids mess up. However, if we look back at Ephesians 6, we see that discipline is actually about training and instruction. Therefore, we need to make sure that we're not just trying to shut down unwanted behaviors, but rather build into the character of who we want our kids to become. A story from my life is that when my wife and I were potty training my oldest son, he was getting it pretty well, but to be honest, he struggled for a long time with the whole poop side of things. I'll confess, I began to get really frustrated every time he'd mess up. I was quick to get angry, and I made sure he acutely understood my disappointment. Not surprisingly, this didn't help things. You see, it wasn't until I realized that I was exasperating my son, and that what he did not need was another lecture. What he did need was for me to start speaking into his potential and telling him what he is capable of. Only then did he truly begin to make progress. For us, if our discipline is based on the foundations of blame, shame, or pain, then we're only going to end up putting our kids down in the end. We need to make sure that our discipline is rooted in a place of building them up. And really, a lot of this simply comes down to properly setting our expectations. The author of the book, For the Love of Discipline, Sarah Wallace, explains that there is a difference between requiring obedience and expecting obedience. In fact, looking back at the Bible, in Proverbs, it says, "Folly is bound up in the heart of a child." This means that our kids are going to disobey us. In fact, we should expect disobedience. Now, of course, I'm not saying that we need to be eagerly waiting for every single time our kids mess up and then pounce on them. No. Rather, understand that our kids are not going to be able to obey without needing help. And the sooner that we build the expectation for this, the sooner we can be prepared on how to respond well. When we are expecting obedience, we can easily get caught off guard, leading us to things like anger or frustration when it happens. On the flip side, if we're expecting obedience, it can lead us to be completely oblivious to when our kids are being disobedient right underneath our noses. Neither is good. The key is learning to expect your kids to need your help to show them how to obey. Now, to clarify, this doesn't mean that we have to stop requiring obedience. Quite the opposite, actually. By expecting disobedience, we're actually preparing ourselves for how to lovingly teach our kids to obey. So remember, it all starts with us. Once we identify those areas that we need to model and exemplify, we can begin to focus on how to bring our kids up instead of putting them down. Finally, changing our mindset to expect disobedience will help set us up for success when it does happen. So now it's your turn. What are the next steps that you plan to take in keeping calm in your home?